Hi, welcome back to a very exciting episode of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. It's 2022. We made it to the new year.
Somehow we survived.
Somehow we survived. Yeah. Somehow we survived the last 24 hours. I guess it's not a secret anymore. A few hours ago, something big was announced. And we have a couple of them right here, right?
That is correct. This morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, Leica launched the successor to the M10 generation of cameras, which ended with the M10R, the M11. It has been 5 years, almost to the day, since the M10 came out, which is hard to believe.
January 2017.
January 2017. Yeah, this is amazing. So this show is the first of what will be 2 episodes dedicated to the M11. Being on launch day, there's obviously going to be more questions than we can answer in one show. So in, I think, 2 weeks or so, January 29th, I think is the day, we're going to do a follow-up episode with more stuff, answer more questions, cover more things in depth, because, yeah.
There's a lot to cover.
There's much to discuss.
There's much to discuss. And if you haven't seen it yet, you should go to red.forum and check out my full written review. I did have an opportunity to test and review the camera. So I shot with it for about a week in New York City, not state. Well, I guess it is.
Both.
It's both, yeah. So shot with it for about a week last month. Have spent the week since really poring over the files, processing, getting to understand them. Because for me, that's as much the camera, understanding the camera as actually going out and using it is seeing what it can actually produce and how those files react and behave and all that. And then, of course, writing lots of words and putting pictures and words together and putting them on the internet for you.
Yes.
So please do check it out.
Yeah. It's pretty in-depth. Yeah. There's a lot of sample images, different ISOs, different lighting, indoors, outdoors. It's pretty good. I read it. We went over it last night and looked at all the pictures this morning. We've also got everything, all the cameras, all the new accessories listed on leicastormiami.com. So you can see specs, pricing, all that stuff. I don't know if, Peter, you want to drop a link to that collection in the chat at some point. And again, this is only the first of 2 episodes we're going to do on the M11 because I already know we're not going to be able to answer everyone's question. I just know this already. There's so much excitement. This is, for us, this is as big as it gets, right?
Yeah, this is huge.
A new M.
This is like draft day or something.
Yeah, this is a big deal. Yeah. This is, we're doing a show in the middle of the work day, which is unusual for us. In fact, unprecedented.
A little bit.
I think we should start by showing this what else is happening today.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff going on, not just our show.
There's a lot of excitement everywhere. And of course, if you work with your local dealer or if you're, in the area, there was a lot of events that were planned today, unfortunately, that were canceled. For as long as in person, but are going strong virtually. So what we want to do is give a shout out and throw up a schedule of events that's happening for the rest of the day. And then we have links to register for those events down in the description. So there'll be a link with a time. Click on it, register for the event, and show up. And let's walk through what's coming up today. So we have starting at 4 p.m. Eastern time at Leica Store DC. Got photographer Brandon Ralph and Leica product specialist.
They can read all this. We don't have to read.
They might not be able to read that. So
it's fun. Yeah. Well,
there's a lot of good stuff
on the hour. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 p.m. Eastern. There's events happening at the other. Obviously, we're Leica Store Miami at the other 6 Leica stores for the rest of the day.
There you go.
And there's a link in the description, you said, or in the chat?
There are links in the description.
Okay, so in the description, you can see the links. You can sign up for whichever or all of the events that you want to. So we definitely encourage you to check out everything because there's so much going on today. There's going to be a ton of content. So I think that sums it up pretty well. So screenshot this if you want. But again, the links are all in the description for this video.
Although here they can actually see the photographers and the product specialists who are giving the presentation. Yes. So these should be pretty fascinating. Some great photographers here and some really knowledgeable folks from Leica Camera USA. So just wanted to give them a shout out and definitely, I guess you get to have fun all day. So
that's right. Today, it's really like a full day dedicated to the M11, I would say. You can come back to us, Jose. There we go.
Right. It's M11 day.
This is going to be intense. I was thinking on the way over here, like, where do we even start?
I don't even know.
Well, we should definitely intro the new camera. I don't want to assume everyone knows everything about it already, which is, I think, why you're tuning in currently.
For sure.
So what we'll probably do is we'll cover the key features. I think we should each talk about, the three of us, Jose included, he's there, what we think our favorite and most exciting new feature is. We'll take as many questions as we can.
Oh my God, I didn't even do a proper intro.
Oh,
I just like
not.
jumped
yeah.
right. Oh my God,
Right.
it's like
Waiting
so
for
exciting.
This is crazy. If you're regular viewers, you can see that we are so like overwhelmed with
So excited.
insanity. So why don't you give us the formal introduction and welcome both
Yes.
you and current familiar viewers.
There you go. So if you haven't tuned in before, this is Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. We are your hosts, David Farkas, Josh Lehrer, and we've got Jose Rivera producing the show, keeping
guys.
track of questions, and he's going to be chiming in today as well because Jose is also a big M shooter himself. So I think we can have
And Peter in the chat.
and Peter, who's hanging out in the chat, also big M shooter. I mean, you can't be a Leica fanatic and not love M, right?
And I have to shout out the team who's running the Leica store right now.
Yes.
Kirsten, Gabe, Steph, Adam, Risa, Julie.
Yeah.
Did I miss anyone?
It takes a village.
Yeah. So we are all hands on deck today and for this week.
And fair warning, just fair warning. At least half of those people, including myself, have actually been awake for somewhere around 36 hours right now.
We're all a little delirious, but only in the best way possible.
And Enzo's here too.
Enzo is here drinking some water right now.
Enzo's drinking some water.
He's going to be a little more active, I suspect, because it's the afternoon. So that's my dog.
Yep.
Whether you don't know.
But it's okay because I had my first cup of coffee today at 3:45 a.m. and I'm
You're a
on like
maniac.
my third or fourth, so I am good to go.
Before we get into this, because we have a lot to cover, for those who are new,
Yes.
give them a very, very short introduction as to who we are, maybe more so what is it that we do and what can they look for on our YouTube channel.
Sure. So on our channel, just Red Dot Forum on YouTube, you can see all of our back episodes. We do these regular broadcasts, the Camera Talk, which is a live broadcast on YouTube. You're watching it. Obviously, you figured that part out. But you can check out our back catalog. Everything is archived in full, glorious 4K resolution. Everything from all the 35 millimeter lenses that Leica's ever made for the M system to all the 50 millimeter lenses, all the Noctiluxes,
Pretty much every current
everything you could imagine,
system camera in the product portfolio we've covered.
and all the history as well.
Yeah, so it's almost 50 episodes now of back catalog talking about I see the dog head. I see the little at the end. Anyway, so if you're new to the channel, please subscribe.
Yes.
And please, not right now, but later, go and check out our back catalog to see all the stuff that we have covered. If you are already a subscriber and you're already familiar, welcome back. Happy New Year.
It's good to see you guys.
Happy New Leica Day. This is it.
It's exciting.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
So let's get into it. I don't know what else to do. I think we know who we are, we know what we do. Let's start. So David, why don't you start by telling us some of the super core, super new, exciting features about
So
M11?
it looks like an M.
Yes.
It looks very much like the outgoing M10R. Not outgoing. The M10R stays current in the lineup. That we might get into that a little later, but
Yeah. Again, we got 2 episodes to cover this, so
So the M11 looks just like an M that you would expect it to. It has that iconic, timeless design of an M. It has that same feel. Although if you pick up the black one right here, it does actually feel lighter. So that's a big change.
well, it doesn't feel lighter because it is, or it feels lighter because it is lighter.
It is lighter.
I'll dive in real quick.
Yeah.
This is the first time that there has been a difference in specification between the black and silver M models beyond the color itself. In this case, the black M11 has an aluminum top plate. The silver M11 has a brass top plate, which makes the black camera about 110
is,
grams or 20% lighter, which is very, very noticeable. It's amazing, especially with a lightweight lens on there.
Yeah, during my testing, I actually had a black camera, and it was nice to carry around, and it was even lighter because I didn't get a Visoflex with mine. So
Yeah, that's right.
today is actually the first time I've seen the Visoflex, even though I've shot extensively with the camera. So you guys we're all experiencing.
We didn't
this
get it
together.
until today, so it was like last minute. Got to test out the Visoflex and check it out.
But I would say, I mean, that's kind of a minor detail. The big headlining feature here is what's inside. The sensor in the M11 is a 60 megapixel, 60.3 if you want to get precise, a BSI, which stands for backside illuminated, CMOS sensor, and it has dual gain architecture. That means 2 base ISOs, as well as triple resolution technology. So it outputs 3 different RAW sizes, 60, 36, or 18, which we will get into in a bit.
Yes.
The big thing here, though, is they were able to really just extract every last ounce of detail and light gathering out of this sensor between being BSI, which I can explain a little bit. I don't want to.
We talked about that in our SL2S
I don't want to
episode
diverge
as
too much. The SL2S has a BSI sensor as well.
Yeah.
This is just much higher resolution. It has 15 stops of dynamic range, which previously the only Leica camera to have that kind of dynamic range was the Leica S series, which is pretty staggering that a little camera like this can have medium format, dynamic range. It's crazy. It goes all the way down to 64 ISO. That's not a pull like it was on the SL going down to 50. This is a native 64, and that's where you get your most dynamic range, and it is stunning at that ISO. But because it is a BSI, it's dual gain, the camera can also go all the way up to 50,000, although I don't recommend going over 25,000. Typically, one stop below the max is usually where this, your maximum real ISO is, unless you're going for that real gritty look. It matches up almost perfectly to the performance that we see in the M10R, which is very impressive.
Well, be more specific. What matches up perfectly?
The ISO performance.
Okay, that's because that's going to be a number one
ISO.
And we'll get into that more.
Yeah. So here we are able to get 15 stops of DR at 64 ISO, but also get incredibly clean results at 10,000, 12,000 ISO.
So let's
with 60 megapixel sensor. It's pretty ridiculous.
I'll just make a definitive statement. I think that you would assess is
the sensor's
the Leica M11 outperforms the M10R overall.
Yes.
More dynamic range, more detail.
Yes.
And equals or slightly betters it at high ISO.
Yes. And
while being 50% higher in resolution and higher in dynamic range.
Correct.
So let's just now what we don't know yet is how it's going to compare to the M10 monochrome converted to black and white. My guess is the monochrome's still going to be better.
That would be my guess.
That's something that we're
well.
going to dive into, I think, in our next episode when we've had more time to do testing.
I mean, my initial thinking there is, having tested these extensively, the M10 monochrome performs really well up to 32,000. And I would say equivalent, again, converted to black and white's a little different, but 12,000, 16,000. So I'd say the M10 monochrome still has a one-stop advantage.
Yeah.
Solid one-stop advantage on the M11 for black and white.
That's fair. And that makes sense because that's the whole point of those monochrome sensors is they're supposed to be unbeatable in low light. So
and currently they are.
They are. So just to make that clear, this is a better sensor than what you get in the M10R. The M10R, no slouch. The camera's amazing.
Yeah.
But as you would hope and expect.
Now, do you want to, so we've got all those pixels. Do you want to kind of explain how that's not a detriment, not just in terms of ISO, but also, you would think that with all that additional data, it would be slower and it wouldn't last as long.
Sure.
It could be difficult with live view.
Leica's design approach is not about specmanship, right? It's not about let's just go with the flow and go higher resolution and call it a day. Everything that they do is based around increasing the capabilities of every aspect of the camera. So yes, we have a brand new 60 megapixel sensor. We also have now a Maestro 3 processor, which is the same one you get in the SL2. We have 50% more internal memory. So where you got, I think, 10 or so shots at 40 megs on the M10R before the buffer filled, now you get 15 shots, 60 megapixels before the buffer fills on the M11.
Yeah.
And of course, if you go down to the lower resolutions, which we'll get into, that buffer size increases. I don't know what magic and wizardry they performed from a power management standpoint, but the battery life on the M11 is unmatched. I mean, we're talking almost S level.
Yeah, which was, just to clarify for those who don't know what the Leica S is or haven't shot with it, it's not a mirrorless camera.
Yeah.
It's a DSLR. So the sensor only activates when the mirror flips up and the sensor, the shutter opens and you take a picture. So, and it had a huge battery. So that camera was getting 1,500 pictures for a traditional DSLR with a massive battery.
And let's remember, one of the huge changes between all previous M's and the M11 is that there's no more light meter in the camera.
No.
There's no separate light meter.
That is a different change.
And what this means is the sensor is always exposed in some fashion or another because the meter reading is being taken off of the camera's sensor.
Yeah.
Even with that, which in theory draws power, or it does draw power, the battery life is still
ridiculous.
So much better than the M10R.
The current standard is if you use the camera in live view, you get 700 pictures, which is, I think, better than the M10R gets in rangefinder.
We're talking about live view the entire time.
Live view the entire time.
The whole time, yeah.
And if you use just the rangefinder, optical rangefinder with no live view and just typical chimping and reviewing, 1,700 pictures.
Yeah.
During my testing, I had one battery in the camera. I had no extras.
Yeah.
We talk about range anxiety with electric vehicles. I was just conditioned to have battery anxiety.
Yeah.
And I would be out shooting from morning to night, 12 hours, one battery. Except I did cheat a little bit. I was able to use one of these.
Well, let's talk about how you could do that.
Yeah. Now,
show the
but
bottom.
before we get to that,
Oh, okay.
I do want to, Jose, to grab a close-up here of the camera.
Oh, right, the meter, yes.
Yep,
Well,
so
let
we
me
can see the meter.
Hold up an M10R at the same time.
Yeah, so what's interesting about this, if we look at the shutter,
Yeah.
okay, and I've got the M10R over here, and notice the shutter blades have a little bit of a lighter, light gray and then kind of a somewhat darker gray stripe in the middle. And on the M11, there's just a black shutter. The reason is, just to put this down for a second, in the M10R, there is, can we get a shot of it? Maybe. The light's kind of hitting it the wrong way, but there is a light meter in the bottom of this compartment.
You're a lot of focus there.
I am a little out of
There you
focus. There's a light meter in the bottom of this compartment here, in this chamber. So light comes in the lens, bounces off the shutter, and into the light meter. And there is a secondary light meter up here that kind of guesstimates the aperture, but that has no impact on exposure. So only the through the lens meter is what's actually calculating exposure.
Yeah.
On the M11, if we look at that instead, there, and if you look in the bottom, it's a little dark down there,
Yeah,
but
you're
there
not
is
gonna see
nothing,
it, yeah.
there's nothing there. Because when I turn the camera on, the sensor is exposed all the time because the sensor is acting in low power mode as a light meter, whether you're shooting in rangefinder only mode, getting 1,700 pictures per battery, or if you're in live view mode and actively using the sensor. Either way, it's actively using the sensor for metering. And what that means is that you're not limited to just the center weight meter on a traditional M body. This now has multi-field metering, which is far more accurate because it's essentially seeing the entire image just like an SL2 does.
Yeah, this is fundamentally different, but fundamentally the same as an SL camera because there's no more meter, there's no more pattern on the shutter. It's simply using the sensor as a light meter, which again, this is the first time on a digital M you can use multi-field or spot metering while in rangefinder mode, meaning while not in live view mode.
Yes.
So that is a game changer. David's exposures in New York, some really, really tricky lighting situations, shooting in aperture priority mode,
Yeah.
spot on. I mean, it's really something
It's
else.
impressive.
And I feel like that feature hasn't been talked about enough in the launch material.
really hasn't, no.
So I wanted to make sure we spent some time on it. Yeah.
Now, how do you extend an all-day battery life if you shoot as much as I do?
Oh, you know what? We're going to test this. Someone wants to know if since there's no meter, can you use a dual range Summicron? I'm going to find out by the next episode.
Jot that one down.
I will find out.
We're actually taking notes for our next
We are.
episode.
I just saw that. I had to say that out loud because I'm like, wow, I didn't think about that.
Okay, so this is a battery pack that I use to charge my phone and other devices. I've got a lightning connector here and I've got a USB-C connector. So for this camera, I'm going to be using the USB-C connection
You get a close up, Jose? There we go.
right here. So there's a USB-C connector right there and I can plug in. And I don't know if you saw what just happened, but this little green light came on. So they've done an interesting job of hiding the LED lights. So there's a green light here, and then also if you're using this port for data transfer, it actually flashes. I think it alternates between green and amber. The camera can be either on like it is right now, or I can turn the camera off, and it will still charge. Just the light doesn't come on, but it is actually charging. So that's kind of neat. And if you come back to the wide shot, so what I was able to do is, I'm not a robot. I'm not a machine. I have to eat. I have to, have coffee and sit down for a few minutes in between shooting. So what I would do is I would just set the camera like this, plug it in, and set it on the table in front of me,
you
and
go.
have my food. And meanwhile, the battery is charging up. I was able to get from, say, about 35% to 85%, so 50% charge in about an hour just from my mobile battery pack here.
Yeah.
And that's so great. Also, if you don't want to take the battery out and put it in the charger, you can just charge it fully by plugging it into the wall in your home or hotel or wherever.
Yeah. And talk about, because we're talking about batteries and stuff, why don't you show them the new charger as well?
Oh, the new charger is awesome.
cool.
Yeah. So let's show you an old charger first.
I put it somewhere. This is an M240 charger, but same.
Yeah, whatever.
It looks the same.
So this is a typical M charger. And you have a mains cord over there?
No. It's fine. They know what it looks like. It comes normally the battery, you get the plug with the, it's fine, David.
okay.
They know what a charger cord looks like.
Right. So if you look at this, you'll see this is called a figure 8 connector here. And it usually comes with a 6-foot power cord that plugs into the wall, which means if you're getting direct AC current coming into this, it needs to charge a DC battery. So all of this area, or a lot of this area, is a transformer to transform alternating current to direct current. But what happens on the new charger that has a USB-C DC power delivery input? So not alternating current from the wall, but DC. Just like your phone or your iPad or every other device in your life takes this same charger, which is awesome because now they can make this little thing so small, and it is also extraordinarily light. This weighs almost nothing. I would have...
And it comes with the camera, by the way. This
Yes,
comes in the box.
of course it comes with
this and a USB cable and a wall plug, all
So-
in the box when you buy one new. Just
I'm
to
gonna
make that
just-
clear. This is not like a new iPhone where you don't get a charger anymore.
No, it's not like
This
that.
is not like that.
So I'm gonna just take the battery out and snapping it in here. You should get a close-up of this. I don't think you're gonna be able to hear the sound, but we'll try. When you snap it in, it makes a little click, and this is fantastic. It has little captive catches on the side, so the battery will not fall out in any orientation that you put it in. It will not fall out,
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
which is great. So that means that you can hang this, from a wall, dangling, and it will not just randomly end up on the floor in the morning. To take it out, there's no catch, there's no release. You just pull, and it makes a little spring sound, and it comes out, and that's it.
Yeah, so this is, in addition to the fact that you can charge the battery in the camera with a USB-C cable, you can also, of course, charge the battery out of the camera, or if you have two batteries, you can charge one in the charger and one in the
Yes.
camera simultaneously. So this is very, very, very nice design. Now, of course, leading into the action of removing the battery on the camera also takes us to the other,
I
what
should
I
show
would say
that. I
is
should
the
show that.
most significant physical change the M11 has over every other M camera ever made, which is there is no longer a removable base plate.
Yes.
Instead, now we see the bottom of the camera, you've got a small little hole for the grip. That's where the grip kind of hooks into on the end there.
This one right here.
You've got a tripod socket, quarter tray tripod socket. You've got the battery release lever, which also has the little charge status light on the side of it. The battery itself, which when you remove it, shows you or gives you access to the SD card port or slot, if you will. Then the USB-C port at the end.
Oh, but it's stuck.
You got to tap it.
Right. Okay.
If
so
you have a Q2, this is familiar
yeah,
to
if
you.
you have a Q2 or an SL2, you'll be familiar with this strategy. So when you pull on the release lever, it does pop out a little bit, but you can't pull on it. You just have to gently tap it down, and it will release and spring out with no effort should be required to take that out.
And then show them where the SD card goes. Yep, there it is. So the battery acts also as a card door. And at the very end,
Oops, I don't. Oh, here's one.
need a card?
Yep, I got one. So you take your card,
Slide it in there. There you go.
and it only goes in one way. And you saw it actually snaps. So it'll click down. You want to make sure it snaps down. And then you put your battery back. Whoop, other way.
You do it there you go. Yeah.
I'm reversed.
You're looking at it like looking at a mirror.
Yeah. And that's it.
And at the end, of course, you've got the USB-C port that is weather dust sealed like it is on an iPhone. So even though there's no cover for it at all, it is protected against the elements. So
Yeah, we're getting a few questions about that.
yeah, so the camera itself doesn't have an IP or weather sealing rating. I don't know if we can say what they've stated the rating is for the port.
I think that port is IP67.
Yeah, because the port is IP67. The camera doesn't have a weather sealing rating. It's, not an SL2. That's what the SL2 is for. But the port is. So there is no cover for the port. I guess you could put a little gaff tape, but I wouldn't do that because then it's going to get all sticky and messed up. So
What about the grip?
Well, you want to talk about that now?
No.
We'll do accessories later. We may have to do that
We
next.
have so much to cover.
So much to cover. Okay,
right.
so we got the sensor. We got the meter. Oh, what I think, I'm just going to skip. Well, that's not my favorite feature, but one of the other, to me, game-changing features is that, and I didn't even realize this, the M10R and all the M10s have no customizable buttons.
That's right. That's right. We were talking about this.
We come from the world of S and SL, where there's all kinds of custom function buttons. You could assign whatever you want. The M10 and the M10R, all those, they have none of those. And I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
The M11 goes from none on the M10R to 3.
3.
So you have a
I'll show those.
300% or 3 times. So now
No,
it's times 0, right?
Yeah, times 0 is
so
infinite. It's infinity times. You get infinity times more.
The M11 has 3 custom function buttons, so I was able to do the close-up. So there's nothing on the front, as you'll see.
There's no button right here anymore.
There's just a lens release button and the frame liner preview lever. That's all you get. The first function button's on the top. That's where the old video button was on the M240.
It's not video.
There's no video functionality here. Then you've got the FN button on the back, which is there in the middle, like it is on NSL. And the third function button is kind of like a secret button.
Ooh, it's hidden.
Actually the thumb wheel right there. Not only is that a wheel, that is also a button that you can click. So now you have 3 buttons, and all you have to do, just like on an SL2, is press and hold the function button to bring up the list of possible settings and choose the setting you want, and boom.
Yep.
You don't have to go into the menu or anything.
Right. So I could use, and of course the menu is the same as a Q2 or SL2 or SL2S, but let's just go back to regular mode here. Yeah. And if I push and hold the function button, you'll see it brings up and it says FN button, and I can scroll through this list either with the wheel or the direction pad. Oops, and I just selected one because I'm backwards.
Doing his back. The backwards and sleep deprived.
I'm backwards and sleep deprived. So there. So if I do, let's say, MISO, okay? Now, if I do a single click of that control, it brings up my MISO control.
This is actually also like the best secret hack.
It is. This is a cool hack.
Because you've got the ISO dial on the top of the camera, which is pretty limited to what manual settings you can choose. If you put the ISO dial into M and then set your thumb wheel to MISO, you actually have access to the full range of third stop ISOs with a simple button click. This is...
Yep, right here.
Again, one of those, like, I have to thank Nathan
this was great,
at Leica for showing us this. We didn't come up with this ourselves.
No, we're not smart enough for this.
No, we're not. But thank you, Nathan, for showing us this feature.
Cool, how cool is that?
So this is just like having an ISO dial on an SL camera where you just click a button and slide and choose whatever you want.
Yep. So you can assign this to whatever you want. So let's say that
we still have the screen protector on the screen. That kind of looks pretty ugly. We could just take it off. Yeah. We're going to, this is Rob's camera? This is our camera.
Oh, people like the peel and stuff, but I just kind of...
It's like an ASMR phenomenon.
I rushed it.
That's okay. We don't need it. There we go.
Which actually, now you can really appreciate, well, if I get it in focus,
there you go,
how gorgeous the new screen is. So we've gone from a 1 megapixel 3-inch screen to a 2.3 megapixel touchscreen as well.
And it's 5/100th of an inch smaller?
Yes.
Yes. So it's basically for all...
It's the same. It's the same.
For the sake of argument, it's the same size with significantly higher resolution.
Right. It's the same, but it's also brighter. This is actually the medium setting, which is pretty bright. And what I like is how nice and crisp the whites are, but also how inky the blacks are. It's like a little OLED screen, except it's not. It's LCD. But it's really, really good contrast on here, and it gets up to 800 nits of brightness, which is enough to easily see it outside. I can attest, because I did not have one of these, I had to use this for my live view shooting. And I was able to use this under every condition, use the screen. I look like a dumb tourist, but you can use the screen for live view shooting. And it's really, really nice. And it's also 100% sRGB color gamut.
Nice.
So super.
It's a nice screen, super responsive, super smooth. I mean, everything you'd expect from a next generation processor. No secrets or surprises there. I want to go back to another feature that you showed briefly that I feel like everybody's glossing over, which is you now have the touch sensitive quick menu
Sure.
that we've had on the SL2 and all the other cameras for quite some time.
We can show
This
that.
is the first time you have it on an M. So if you hit menu once,
Well, it still wants me to sign that button.
oh, there you go. Okay, hit menu. Now you've got this. If you have an SL2, this looks very familiar. These are touch-sensitive buttons, and you can change your settings here before you go into the main
So
menu.
let's say I go into exposure compensation. I could easily dial this in, or if I'm really nimble, I can
There you go.
adjust it, and you can see it's very responsive. I don't want to block the screen.
This is super nice.
Yeah. So that's exposure compensation. If I'm in MISO, I can just tap that, and I can also adjust my ISO right there as well, or just flip it
Yeah,
into
so
auto.
it's not just these big sweeping headlining changes. A lot of the things that I think are super nice are the small little tweaks, or like you talked about in your review, adopting some of the changes and the other technology improvements they've made in other cameras that Leica has produced, and bringing them into the M11.
Yeah, and I mean that is something that I think people don't fully appreciate about Leica, which that I do. In other manufacturers, whether it's in the camera business, whether it's in other industries, typically the best features are saved for the best products.
Right.
You know, and there's echelons of product levels, and saying, okay, well, the pro product gets this feature, but the amateur product doesn't get that. It only gets this. What Leica does is sort of this rolling snowball, if you will, of product development, because anything that's developed for any other system just sort of ends up in the pool for the product designers of whatever's next. And they're like, yeah, we'll take all that, and we'll take this, and we'll take this.
And on that note, let's talk about another game-changing feature that the M gets for the first time.
Yes.
Now, I think I saw some questions. The M11's mechanical shutter is the same quiet shutter we have on the M10P and the M10R. Well, they're not going to hear that.
I mean,
So
you
that's-
can't hear it. Yeah.
It's the same. So that's carried over. There's nothing that's worse about the M11 than the M10R in that respect.
It's quiet.
It's got
It's
the
very
touch
quiet.
screen and the level and all that. But what does the M11 have that's in an M camera for the first time?
An electronic shutter.
Which means what?
It's electronic.
Well done. Next point. No.
No, so the mechanical shutter on an M has always been limited. Well, not always. It was actually 0.008 of a second on the M8, but that caused a racket and a lot of vibration. So they kind of scaled that back to 0.004 of a second, which is where we've stayed ever since the M8.2. So digital M's have always been 0.004 of a second. Film M's, I think just 1,000th of a second.
Yeah.
With the cloth focal plane shutters,
Yep.
which are horizontal, so they have a lot more area to cover than a vertical titanium shutter that's in these. But still, 4,000 of a second, where has that become a problem? Let's say that and it was even more so,
Got one of these.
yeah, let's say on an M10R that only goes down to 100 ISO only, and you want to shoot at f.95, and you only have 4,000 of a second shutter speed on your camera. So what do you need to use? A 3-stop ND, because otherwise you need to stop down, and what's the point of having an Octolux if you're going to shoot it at f4? There is no point. So an electronic shutter allows you to go up to 1/16,000 of a second, where and in combination with the lower base ISO of 64, you now are picking up almost 3 stops over the 4,000th of a second. And you can go out in bright daylight and shoot to your heart's content at 0.95 or 1.4 with no filter, which is really nice.
Yeah. And I think, what did you mention? It was totally silent?
Oh,
Yeah. Like the M10's,
tell me more.
the silent shutter on the M10R is pretty darn quiet, but the electronic shutter on the M11, like it is on the SL2, is totally quiet. I mean, there's no noise.
And I found a hidden use for it.
Tell me.
Here's a little pro tip.
Okay.
I was shooting some sunset and after sunset from Top of the Rock at Rockefeller Center, and they don't allow tripods up there. And there is no, as people are well aware, maybe, there is no image stabilization in this camera because it's too small. You can't fit a stabilized sensor in this camera body like you can in an SL2. So what do you do with 60 megapixels and a body that has no stabilization, and you're rapidly running out of light and you don't have a tripod? Well, I kind of tested a theory because one, I was shooting, at that time I was already shooting at 8,000, 10,000 ISO, which was fine, but I really, as a landscape photographer, it just kind of pains me not to extract the maximum detail. If you're going to go to that effort of, having a beautiful scene like that you might blow up the size of a wall, you want lower ISO. So what I did is I switched into electronic shutter rather than hybrid mode. In hybrid mode, once you run out of mechanical shutter speed at 4,000, it flips over and just goes straight into electronic. And I'd say that's what I'd recommend most of the time for most people, because that'll cover you in those fast aperture scenarios. But I was looking to eliminate vibration at slower speeds, so I switched into electronic, and then even more so went into using my custom function, 2-second self-timer. And I just held really still, clicked the shutter, and because that nice tanky mass of an M body and an M lens, I got sharp pictures at 60 megapixel, mind you, at 1/6 of a second with no image stabilization. And I mean sharp pictures. I was even able to shoot my 90 at a 10th or 15th of a second. Again, crazy. So that's a little hidden tip if you're looking to extract the absolute slowest handheld speeds out of the M11, use the electronic shutter. Because that'll get you that.
He covers this in his
extra
review, so you should read the review and then you can see the pictures.
And you can see the pictures
that came out of that experience.
And we might even show pictures if we have time. So
we will not have time.
we will have time.
Okay, we talked about. Don't look at the chat. We still have too many things to cover. Remember, we're going to do another show because there's going to be 80 billion unanswered questions. I already know.
Okay.
January 29th, we will be back.
What have we not covered?
A lot of stuff. I have my notes here.
Internal memory.
I was just about to say that.
Internal memory.
What else does the M11 have that we've only seen once before on a Leica camera?
So we only saw it on the TL2.
Well, the TL.
Well, the TL
T-system.
the T system, yeah. So the T system has what, 32?
Started at 16 and then they moved up to the 32.
Yeah, 16 gigs on the T701 and then 32 on the TL2, right?
Yes.
Does that sound
Sure.
good? It checks out.
No,
It checks
32 on the TL and they kept it going.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Keep going.
No problem. Anyway, that camera incorporated built-in memory, and I guess when they were developing the other products, everyone's like, man, we don't need that. Well, when it came to the M11, they're like, sure, yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah.
Put it in here. So this one has 64 gigabytes of high-speed internal memory, and that is all the difference there. So this is not your USB 2 rated, slow memory.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty fast, solid-state memory.
And show them the menu for where you can configure that, because I think there's probably some questions about that, and this is a good opportunity to do that.
Sure, that's under. I apologize. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, because it's hard to do this from looking at it backwards. There we go. There you are.
And then can I get? There we go.
You got
Okay,
this.
so storage management, and you'll see here. Actually, this is getting ahead of myself. So if you have pictures on the internal memory and you want to transfer them to the SD card, this function allows you to do that. There's no SD card in here now, which is why it's grayed out. But you can transfer either all of them or any starred images can be transferred from internal memory to the card. I was able to do this. It took about 3 minutes to transfer, 300 pictures?
Yeah, I mean, that's all in the review.
Yeah.
If you want to get the real deep dive
but
specs on
then
that.
under, where did we go? Shutter, storage options. Okay, so now this is the menu to configure where your pictures go. And it's a little confusing, but you have DNG plus JPEG, DNG plus JPEG, DNG only. And what it's doing, and I explain all of these options in the review, but you can see we've got first, internal equals SD, which is backup. We've got split, SD only, and internal first. So what I'd recommend is probably, if you don't want your pictures to just randomly go onto the internal memory, is just SD first, or either SD first or SD only. SD first will fill up your memory card, and then it'll spill over onto the internal memory as a sort of a reserve tank, which might be nice if you really just don't want to miss a shot and you don't want to have to think about a full memory card. But the SD only will act just like any other M camera with ignoring the internal memory completely. Or if you are boneheaded that day and you forget your memory card, or your memory card is full,
we've all done it.
We've all been there. Then you can just set it to internal only and shoot. It actually is it's same performance.
Unfortunately, right now you can't shoot one resolution on the SD card and like
No, you can't.
but maybe in firmware. I don't know.
Possible.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but that would be cool. Again, if you look at, we talked about this before, but if you look at Leica's past product releases, major system cameras, M's, SLs, whatever, and you track the progress they made via firmware in terms of feature and additions and bug improvements, it's significant.
Yeah, very.
So it's sometimes hard to remember that when something new comes out.
Yeah.
And we go, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. It's like, just hang on.
Easy,
It does a lot
Tiger,
of
easy,
things.
right.
And then over the lifespan of this 5 years, I'm sure that we'll
gosh.
get to enjoy this. Who knows what awesome stuff we're going to see. So I'm pretty excited about that as well. We talked about, I need to look at my notes. There's so many things. Battery life, electronic shutter, new sensor, new processor. Should we dive into that?
Yeah,
Because
we
I have single-handedly caused a stir of controversy with the comments I initially wrote.
Ooh, magnets.
So, okay. As part of the M11 product launch, there is also a new electronic viewfinder called the Visoflex 2. Very original.
There we go.
It is right
let's do a
here.
close-up.
Now, it is a high resolution OLED panel with a faster refresh rate, smoother view, more adjustability from the diopter. It's built out of metal. It's beautiful. It's a very different shape. You get used to it. I'm already used to it now.
That's it.
And it does angle. But when I listed the Visoflex 2 on our website, I purposely made a comment in the listing that it will not work on the Leica M10. And everybody is going bananas because they seem to think that it will. And I'm here to tell you that as of right now, January 13th, 2022, it will not work on the Leica M10. You can put it on there and look at it, but it will not function. Now, Leica has indicated that there will be a firmware update for the M10 series of cameras. I don't know if it will be for all of them, like P, D, R, mono.
That's the current. That's the current indication.
They have indicated there will be a firmware update, which will then allow the Visoflex 2 to work on the M10, or at least some of them. We don't know exactly when that firmware update is going to come. And more importantly,
March.
We don't know what type of functionality we're going to have because, like as indicated, you will not get the full resolution of the Visoflex 2 on an M10. So I would say don't go out and rush to buy a Visoflex 2 to use on your M10 or M10R or M10 something until the firmware is released and we'll talk about it on air about how it works and how it functions. So as of right now, again, to be clear, the Visoflex 2 does not work on any M10 based camera
Yet. And
Yes.
just to give you kind of a rundown here, this is the Visoflex.
The Type 020, the
Except
first one.
it's a little confusing. So it's just the Visoflex, and this is the Visoflex 2. You can actually see it written right there. Like a Visoflex 2, written on the back. What's confusing is this one is referred to as the Type 020. It's a lot of twos. You got Visoflex 2, 020. It's confusing. If you look at the round one, this fits on the M10.
Right, and that doesn't work on the M11. The
It does not.
Visoflex 020 does not work. So right now, as of today, these are not cross-compatible.
No.
When eventually there is an update that allows the Visoflex 2 to work on the M10 or whatever, obviously we're going to talk about it here. David's going to post about it on Red Dot Forum, so stay tuned. But I just want to make that clear. Like, don't go and buy a Visoflex 2 right now.
No.
Get it in the mail and stick it on your M10 and go, it doesn't work. So anyway,
Right. So
rant over.
Okay, so the big upgrade here is this is a the old one, the Visoflex original Type 020 for the M10 is a 2.4 megapixel EVF. The Visoflex 2, as Josh already mentioned, it's pretty substantial in terms of like
It actually weighs exactly the same to the gram as the M11 batteries, which I find fascinating.
it's solid. Like this really feels solid. I kind of like it. It does have a built-in diopter with a pretty large correction range. I think it's -4 to +3.
Or +2, +3, +3? I don't know. It's in the list.
I think it's -4 to +3.
Yeah, okay.
It has a pretty good eye relief as well. And essentially, this is a 3.7, we'll round up, 3.68 megapixel OLED EVF. So not LCD, OLED, which is really great contrast and color. Essentially, if you've ever looked through a Q2, that's kind of what you're looking at here.
Oh, someone's asking the price. I have it in my pile of papers here somewhere. I think it's $740.
Yeah,
for the
$740.
$740. So it's a little bit more than the Type 020. Obviously, it's quite a bit better.
Yeah.
We just got the Visoflex 2 today. David did not have it for his review. So our real meaningful feedback on that is going to be saved for our next show when David and I both will have more time to use it. So I don't want to get into much about like response times and blackout and stuff yet, because I want to make sure I want to make sure that we both are going to speak really articulately about it. So again, January 29th, M11 follow-up show.
Yeah.
So we'll get it. We'll get
I
there.
do want to point out,
Yes.
with that upcoming firmware, Leica has been very clear that because of the hardware limitations of the M10 generation, processor, connection, etc., it will not run the new Visoflex 2 at 3.7 megapixels.
Yeah.
It will run it at 2.4, the same resolution as the original Visoflex Type 020.
Yes.
That is a limitation. The other one, and something nice that the M11 is going to do that the M10 isn't, is live view stabilization.
Oh, I was going to talk about that. You spoiled it.
Oh,
My favorite feature.
it's pretty cool.
That's the feature that I am most excited about.
Yeah.
I shoot a lot with vintage lenses and super, super fast aperture lenses, and my eyesight is not great, even with my glasses on. And I do like the rangefinder experience for like a 35 chron or whatever. Yeah. But I frequently, not just on the M's, but on the SLs, use the magnification or the focus assist that is offered in the live view cameras, where, at least on the M cameras, you turn the focus ring and automatically it will magnify the live view, either 5x or 10x or whatever terminology they use now. So that's amazing. It helps you dial in the focus very precisely. But with longer lenses or really shallow depth of field lenses or whatever, it can still be tricky because you're, trying to look at this magnified
and
view.
combine it with more than twice
The resolution. Yeah. Exactly. So you're really trying to be steady and look at this magnified view, and it's shaken and you're trying to focus. So what Leica has done on the M11 is they have electronically stabilized the live view magnification, much like you would stabilize video by cropping it slightly, because you're already cropped by magnifying.
A lot.
To make it a much, much smoother and more stable magnified view, either on the screen or in the Visoflex 2, either or, so that you can really, really precisely dial in your focus while magnified. This is a game-changing feature if you use magnified live view a lot, like I do.
I did.
I was playing with it with the 75 Noctilux earlier today. I actually had it, I had the M10R with the Viso and the M11 with the Viso 2, and I was bouncing between them with the 75 Noct.
Okay.
To see how meaningful in practice the difference
And what do you think it was?
Significant.
Okay.
I was able to focus on like a magazine from across the store much faster, more accurately. It's really, to me, a speed advantage because I get the magnified view and it's super smooth, and instantly I just dial it in and I'm good. Whereas on the M10 generation with the Viso 020, I'm first kind of waiting for myself to steady and then I'm focusing.
Right. Otherwise, if there's too much motion, you can't even determine if it's sharp enough. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is a huge, huge feature. Again, it's not IBIS like you have on an SL2 or OIS like you have on a Q2. It's electronic stabilization only for the magnified view.
Right. Not for the final image.
Yes. And it works, again, on the screen or the Visoflex 2. It works on both. Huge. Awesome.
I used this because I used... I shouldn't tease the people.
Well, see, David only, if you read his review, I'll tell you now, he only uses lenses that are either discontinued or impossible to get. Because he's a cruel, cruel man, and he wants to tease us. I, on the other hand, have been purposely using it with, like, normal lenses to get a feel for it. So this is the lens that I use the most during my testing. And I want to just, before I reveal it, I want to say that I have a real sneaking suspicion that this lens was literally, and I hate the overuse of that word, that was literally designed for this camera. Or the lens was designed for this camera because they were in development at the same time, and this happens to be the finest M lens that has ever come out of Germany. I would agree with that. The finest is one of those words that could mean a lot of things.
The highest
performing.
Highest objective performance.
Yes.
Yes.
I concur with you.
Okay, so a little close-up action here. This is the somewhat unobtainable...
Not somewhat, extremely
unobtainable 35 APO Summicron M. And the thing that makes this, I guess, really an important feature about that magnified and stabilized live view is when you go past right here, normally M lenses go to 0.7 meters that are rangefinder coupled, but on this lens, it actually extends into this gray zone and flips around to get into the close-up range, which is decoupled from the rangefinder. So you have to use this in live view. You also happen to be very, very close to your subject because it's essentially a macro lens. And just that high magnification combined with the high resolution and being so close to a subject and being at arm's length because some of us didn't get Visoflexes to test, I was able to nail focus repeatedly at this lens, wide open, at minimum distance.
One of the things I want to talk about, if you don't mind me changing the subject briefly, is just trying to absorb some of the comments I've seen online. There seems to be a little bit of divisiveness about Leica using an aluminum top plate as opposed to brass.
Okay.
The first thing I'll mention is that this is not the first time they've done this. As I've talked about before, the M Type 262 used an aluminum top plate to save about 100 grams. That camera has become extremely hard to find because they're very, very desirable. I've taken plenty of them on trade-in and I've seen how they wear, and they wear just fine, just like the black chrome. It's no real difference there. I don't think a lighter weight M, to me, makes it feel cheaper or less substantial because it's not that much lighter.
Yeah.
It's not like picking up a compact camera. It's not like that. It still feels very solid. It's just light enough that it feels really well balanced, especially with the smaller lenses.
Yeah.
And it just makes you want to get out and shoot more. I would say don't dismiss the fact that it's made from aluminum just because, like, try to get your hands on one.
I mean, think about this.
Yeah.
The camera that I use the most for my, real out there work that I do, which is primarily leading photo workshops for landscape photography. I'm using the SL2.
Yeah.
It's made of aluminum.
There you go.
It's practically indestructible because I have tried to destroy it. Everyone can attest to that.
I'll say we've come a long way from
this.
We've come a long way from the zinc top plates.
How about this?
On M6s.
This is a lightweight all aluminum camera. This is my Q2 monochrome.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, on a recent trip back in November when I was in Scotland, and I came clean on a previous episode about this, but I'll show it just as an example. This is a Q2 monochrome, and you can see it's got a little bit of wear on the top plate here, especially that big old scratch, and wear on the edges, top and bottom. This used to look perfect a couple months ago. Unfortunately, we were caught in a bit of a hailstorm at the top of the mountain.
This is a short version of the story. I've already told this.
Anyway, it rolled 50 feet down a mountainside.
Oh my goodness, this is painful to hear.
Wet mountainside.
Yeah.
I picked it up, and I've been shooting with it ever since. It is a durable, rugged camera. And this is a very lightweight aluminum.
Yeah. So I guess what I want to say is, obviously,
don't dismiss
color
it.
preference is color preference, but having held and shot both cameras, silver and black, don't dismiss the black one because the top plate is aluminum. Come to the store if you're here and come see it, or visit your local store and hold it and feel it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I also want to address the other, now that we have a captive audience, the other elephant in the room, of course, which is what happens every time there's a new Leica product, which is availability.
Yeah.
So let's knock that out of the way in as best I can. Number one, deliveries have started. Some customers will have their cameras today. That's a good thing because when the 240 came out, I remember it took 4 months between announcement and the first cameras arriving. So I am optimistic about the fact that Leica has begun delivering cameras and Visoflexes and a few other small things already. The downside is not everyone who wants a camera on launch day will get one.
Yeah.
In fact, most people who want a camera on launch day will not get one on launch day. Leicas are handmade. We've both been to the factory. We've seen them doing it. It's awesome. I will tell you this, it will be worth the wait. You can see how excited we are, despite the fact that David hasn't slept since November. We are beside ourselves. It will take some time to get everyone a camera who wants one. We won't really know how long that's going to be, but I'll ask you this. For those of you watching that have any Leica, especially a current one like an M10R or something similar, do you remember how you had to wait for it? Or do you remember all the great pictures you made and the joy you had using it? So I would encourage you to think about that as we wait, all of us, anxiously for more cameras, that you'll get it, you're going to shoot it, you're going to make amazing pictures, you're going to love it, and you're going to forget that you had to wait, I hope. So I'm all smiles, all optimistic about it. It's going to be the coolest new Leica since, I don't know.
The SL2?
The SL2, yeah, which we,
Or the Q2.
Yeah, so I am really, really into it. Again, having had some hands-on time with the samples we've had, and I'm looking forward to doing more car stuff with it because I haven't really done that much yet, and really pushing the Visoflex 2 a lot, which we are both going to be doing over the next few weeks.
And I'm curious personally to see how this is going to fit in for landscape photography with my primary SL2 kit, because now we're looking at as good or better resolution, as good or better dynamic range, and way better high ISO performance, which is pretty fascinating. This is sort of the first camera that is, well, maybe not the first, but it's one of the first, and certainly a recent introduction. The M10R and I would say the M10 monochrome were also in that vein, as is the Q2 monochrome, having extreme resolution, but also extreme low light ability. So this is the first kind of real jump past where we were.
And speaking of that, I want you to talk a little bit about, because this may change between even now in the next show, which is why I want to set a metric now. The triple resolution technology.
Yes.
What is it? Where, as of right now, from your testing, what are the practical benefits, and what are some of maybe the myths that you can bust as of right now? Again, this may change.
Yes.
But.
Okay. Triple resolution. So if you're just joining us, the 60 megapixel sensor is able to, you can select it. You can select LDNG for 60, MDNG for 36, or SDNG for 18 megapixel. And this is actually something that a lot of people wanted. Certainly a lot of professional street photographers. I don't need 60 megapixels. Who needs 60 megapixels? But what they might like is a camera that has this kind of dynamic range and high ISO capability and burst depth as well. Because when you go to MDNG, you get 30 picture burst, which is pretty impressive. I mean, that's leaning on the shutter for a while.
Yeah, that's a lot of pictures.
It's a lot of pictures. And if you really need even more, you can go to SDNG and get unlimited DNG shooting. And unlike other cameras out there, it doesn't compress that file anymore. So they're all 14-bit DNGs, all with 15 stops dynamic range, which is great. It is pixel binning technology. So it's using the entire sensor and aggregating the data into larger blocks, if you will. And it's a pretty complicated algorithm that is way beyond my pay grade. But they figured out how to do it. And I guess the selling feature in the past of pixel binning has been not only is it dropping in resolution, but you're gaining ISO performance, you're gaining dynamic range, because essentially you're making larger virtual photo sites, larger pixels. They're still the same pixels. So in my testing and experience, I would say that LDNG and MDNG, so 60 and 36, are on parity with each other in terms of performance. I didn't see any kind of increase in performance from dropping the resolution, except before applying, just if I zeroed out the noise reduction, just brought everything to zero, yes, I'd say the MDNGs were ever so slightly cleaner at higher ISO. But once I dialed in noise reduction, the LDNGs usually outperformed the MDNGs because the pixels were smaller, which meant the noise was smaller, which meant Lightroom in its current iteration, with its current algorithms, can more effectively take out the noise from a larger file than a smaller file.
Again, I just want to say this is contrary to most of what's out there right now, and we're going to explore this feature more because we don't really know with Lightroom updates and also more testing how it's going to change. But I've seen in the files, and I can say that what he's saying is actionably correct based on the actual use of the camera.
Right. I've done real-world testing in, dimly lit jazz clubs, and I've also done sort of informal bench testing with color checker, with bracketed exposures at every single.
I'm going to interrupt you one more time. There's probably going to be stuff on the internet that says, well, a 36 looks better. David's assessment of a camera's performance, if you watch the show, you know. If you haven't, you don't, is not based on take a picture, take out the memory card, take it to the drugstore and make a print and look at it. David's assessment of a camera's performance is based around the entire imaging pipeline. That means processing as well, because that's part of it. So when he's making these conclusions that he's making today, they're based on shooting, importing, editing to taste, and assessing. That's how it works. So that's where he's drawing these conclusions from, which is, of course, where your photos are going to end up finished.
Well, we call it the final result, right?
Yes.
It's what you want hanging on your wall, because no one hangs, maybe somebody does, an out-of-camera.
And that's fine
whatever.
if you do. We're not judging, but we're just saying to get the most out.
Generally speaking, things are finished. Everything is finished. Whether you're a carpenter, you're going to sand it, you're going to finish it, you're going to, shellac it, whatever you do to make it a finished product. You're not going to just cut down a tree put some nails in it and say, there's a table, because it's not a finished piece of furniture. It's just wood. So
if you don't, I'm just going to interrupt you again because I'm agreeing with you, and I'm one of the most underrated aspects of digital photography is integrating thorough post-processing into your workflow. And what David has been doing for the last 20 years is mastering the combination of Leica and Lightroom, 15 years, however long it's been.
15 years, yeah.
So when I see the files that come out of David's Lightroom catalog and I see the finished prints, I'm looking at those and understanding that that's not just snap print, that's the sum of his testing experience, research, and data in order to get the most from those files, which to me is the point. You get the best tool to get the best result.
Right.
Anyway, another rant
For sure.
is over.
Yeah, and we could insert whatever analogy for whatever other interest that you have to make the same point, because it applies to almost anything in the same way. That if you just kind of take the default setting as is, it's never as good as something that is nuanced and massaged and optimized by someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. The other thing that I haven't really looked in the chat enough,
I haven't
but I
looked in
guarantee
there.
there's people asking when there's going to be an M11 monochrome, and can we just be happy there's an M11 today? I think it's an average of like 3 years in between color, and I don't even know. It's so hard to say.
I thought you said it was 29
I'll
months.
have to do the math and something like that. But we have an M11. We are living in 2022 where we don't have flying cars. We have people are going to space like all the time, and yet we still get to buy a brand new digital rangefinder, handmade in Germany.
People are going to space all the time.
People are going to space, and we get to buy. I mean, I think it's easy to take that for granted, especially because you and I are so immersed in this Leica world. But I can get an M lens from 1954 and put it on this digital rangefinder that came out today, and it works beautifully. Now, of course, on that topic, I guarantee you there are questions in the chat about how do old lenses work? Are they made redundant by the 16 megapixels?
Yeah.
The short answer is they're not. The long answer is that's something we'll cover in the next show.
And we want to test more because when I was out in my testing, I'm using a 35 APO Summicron. I'm using a 50 APO Summicron.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm using lenses you can't get anymore, which are also incredible performers, like the 18 Super Elmar and the 24 Elmar. And Leica, if you're listening, you should make those lenses again.
Please.
Please. They're so, so good. And I'm never getting rid of mine. So the 18 was like the biggest surprise on this.
Don't go pining too much about this stuff because you're going to drive me crazy.
It's going to drive people nuts. Okay. But I would say that my 90 was just okay. I've always loved mine, and it is a classic. It's a preaspheric. It's a 90 Elmarit 2.8. It's about 20 years old now. And it didn't really match up to the level that all the other lenses did. I probably would have been better off with, say, a 90 macro Elmar.
Yeah, probably, definitely.
Definitely.
Well, that, of course, if you watch the one episode everyone who's watching this should watch is our It Depends episode. It's literally called It Depends because we give that answer so much. When, David, your objectives for M11 testing is about maximizing performance.
Yes.
So you're using lenses that do that. So when I look at vintage lenses conceptually on these ultra high-res cameras, whether that's an M10R, M11, or SL2, I'm simply changing my mindset and my creative objectives from maximum performance to unique performance.
Sure.
It just looks different. I don't expect it to perform.
I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, but it's true.
And in fact,
yes,
my wife, who we all know, some of you guys know,
she's like over here somewhere.
she's
Hopefully picking up lunch because I'm starving.
Oh my gosh, that'd be great. So M10 monochrome is what she uses, which is, I mean, I don't think anyone doubts it. It's one of the highest resolving, detailed M cameras to date, including the M11. You know, if we actually, and this is going to be interesting, to match up the M10 monochrome that has no color filter array, which means it has no interpolation, versus an interpolated color sensor, there might still be, you know, a good running here for the M10 monochrome versus the M11. Well, we're going to put that to the test. But that being said, this is a very, very high precision, high resolving camera. I'm pointing to it just over here.
The M10 monochrome. Yes.
Okay. She uses a 50 Summicron Classic, which was designed in 1976 by Dr. Mandler out of Canada. And it's the oldest design in the current lineup today, and it acts very much like a vintage lens. She's using that because it kind of takes the edge off of that camera and gives you these really beautiful, almost like old Hollywood type of photos that would be very difficult to get with modern glass. So it's not out of the question to use vintage glass, whether it's an older current model, just an older design, or like vintage glass from the 50s, 60s, 70s. It's just a different paintbrush. It's a different paintbrush. And the great thing about M is how many systems out there are compatible with a back catalog of almost 70 years of lenses without it. Well, there's still a few exceptions. I was going to say
very few exceptions.
But very few exceptions.
Speaking, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
And
yeah.
it's awesome as a photographer to have access to that toolkit. It's really nice.
I would say so. One of the things I'd like you to come back to now is, and then we're going to take questions, but I want to cover this. I want you to cover this, is talk a little bit about the use of the camera's USB-C port for both power in terms of some of the goodies you have here.
Let me bring that.
And because I want to cover this today, and also what you can do with the data on the camera from that port.
Sure. Okay. So I showed you the charger, which is awesome. I love this. And it's so small. It's so, it really is light. It's so small and light. I just throw it in my camera bag without question, although I don't really need to because I could just plug the camera in. So I'm going to show you the other part. So Leica gives you this in the box.
Let's get a close up, please. Thank you, Jose.
And I said it with such love and adoration, didn't I? It's a very, not the best. This is not my favorite thing that Leica's ever shipped in a box. And it does have interchangeable prongs, but so what? This is a 10-watt USB charger. By comparison, let me show you what I would use and did use. This is not a Leica. This is just an Anchor, which a lot of people are familiar with for phone chargers and phone cables. Am I blowing that out there?
It's okay.
There we go.
I can see it.
And this is called a Power Cube 3. It's got flip-out prongs, which are great because they don't poke into your gear. And it's got a USB-C port right here. And this is a 20-watt cube versus a 10-watt cube or something.
Prism. Pokey prism.
Right. So all you need then is a charge cable like so. So you go USB.
That's USB-C to USB-C, right?
Yep, this is USB-C charge cable, and I'm going to be specific about this. This is a braided charging cable. It is not good for data, and I'll explain why. And I'll plug the other end right into my charger, and that's it.
Well, you could also plug that into the camera.
Or I could plug this.
What I wanted to get you to
Yes,
show.
or
Yeah.
I could just plug this directly into the bottom of the camera.
There we go.
I love these little angled ones. I use them for my computer because then the cord doesn't stick out the bottom. It comes out the side, which means, and Jose, come back to me. You can.
Julie just said she's not bringing us lunch.
Nice.
She's crime against humanity right here.
Yeah, so you can actually just set it down on the table. If you use the straight connector side, I know this is like minor stuff, but if you use the straight connector, you can't lay the camera down. You have to stick it sort of lens up or upside down, like a Apple mouse. You can't put it down. So I like these little angle cables on one end. They're pretty convenient, both for your computer and for this. This happened to be from my computer. Now, I mentioned that you can't use this for data, and I do want to be pretty specific about that. These cables, you might see 100-watt charging cable, amazing, USB-C. The standards are all over the place. This cable is only rated for USB 2.0, which are most of the charge cables are, which is 480 megabits per second, which is like 20 megabytes per second, which is doggedly slow. If you want to charge and you want to transfer data, you're going to want something more like this. This is a USB 3.1 Gen 2 cable. The camera's rated for USB 3.1 Gen 1, which is 5 gigabits per second, which translates to like 600 and some megabytes per second. Way, way faster than USB 2.0. It's definitely a more substantial cable, but this is going to get you data and charging, both. So if you are just concerned with charging on the go and you're never going to download it, this kind of cable is more pliable and usually a little thinner and lighter. versus the heavier insulated data cables. You can also use a Thunderbolt 3 cable, which is essentially like a USB 3.2 Gen 2 by 2 cable, which is the same thing. But if you just look for a 10 gigabit per second rated cable, you're good to go for data.
And we'll probably carry at least one or two of these over the next few weeks, so that you can make sure you're getting the right thing.
Generic cables.
I'll have David figure that out. But now, that's power.
Yep.
What about data?
Right. So data, I did test this. I shot internally and downloaded to my computer. It only has 2 modes right now for USB, which is PTP, which stands for point to point. Very, very complicated. It means this point to your computer point.
There you go.
Or Apple MFI, which requires a little bit more explanation. But let's stick to the PTP. You plug this into your computer and nothing happens. And you go to your desktop and you look for a drive, you look for a camera, it's not there. Because what you need is something called mass storage mode. The camera does not have that now. The SL2 does, but the M11 doesn't have it, I'm hoping, yet, that it will roll out. In that regard, you would be able to open the drive up, which is your camera storage, and then just copy and paste and move them wherever you want. So I am looking forward to that, but it's not, we talked about the firmware. That's going to be upcoming firmware, probably. In PTP mode, you have to use compatible software that supports the standard. Adobe Lightroom, right out of the box, I plugged the camera in and my importer popped up with all the pictures. And you could just import the pictures directly from the camera and it copies onto your drive. You can also use the Apple Photos. You can use the Adobe Bridge, but you can't browse. So you have to use the Adobe Bridge photo import tool.
This will have to end up being a standalone video.
Yeah.
I think, because there's a lot of
there's a lot of little
variables,
niggles
but
here.
you can't just plug it in and copy photos off of it.
No. But you can import directly into Adobe Lightroom. That's the takeaway. And it works great. So, but you do not want to use this cable because I did that. I made that mistake first. I was not even thinking, and I plugged this in because it's what I had been using to charge the camera, and I got like 7 megabytes per second, and I fired off an email to my contact at Leica. I was like, this is horrible. What's going on? And then I was like, oh, right. I need the high-speed cable like I would plug in a 4K monitor to. This cable. And then suddenly I was getting it's like 75 to 80 megabytes per second, which is much more reasonable. That's what you would expect, say, from a high-speed card reader. So that worked out way, way better. The camera does have UHS 2 card support. And for comparison's sake, when I downloaded the same images into Lightroom on my laptop, just using the internal card reader, I got 185 megabytes per second transfer rate, which is about double what using the highest speed cable was.
So in summary, it's way, 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 way faster to remove the card, put it into a high-speed card reader and import than it is to plug the camera in.
And that was off this card.
But if you don't have a card reader or you're in the field or whatever, you can plug the camera in directly to your computer.
Sure.
And through Lightroom or Apple Photos or compatible software, import the photos directly from either the camera's internal storage or the memory card.
Correct.
It's just to summarize.
Correct. And if you don't have a cable and you have all the pictures on the internal memory, you can go to the storage management and you can just say copy all from internal memory to the SD card. And it copied at roughly the same speed that it transferred over the cable. So roughly about 75 megs.
Talk about, I looked through some notes. Talk about
this.
Yes, thank you. This is what I wanted you to get to.
Yep.
Okay, good. And then I want to talk about this.
Okay, so the second mode in USB is called Apple MFI. And MFI, it's kind of funny when I love technology acronyms like PTP. What's PTP? Point to point. Okay, what does MFI stands for? Made for iPhone. That's actually what it stands for. MFI, made for iOS, okay? I think Apple says now made for iPhone and iPad, which is like MFI something?
Carry on.
In another first for Leica, the M11 is the first product from Leica to be Apple MFI certified. That means they actually sent Apple these cameras and had them go through their own internal certification process to be 100% compatible with iDevices, iOS, whether that means, an iPhone Pro or an iPad Pro. To that end, there is a cable included in the box, which is and you do not have to buy this. It's listed for sale, but
You can buy it separately, but it comes in the box just like the charger does.
Yep. It's got USB-C on one end. We can get a close up here.
There we go.
USB-C on one end here, and it says Leica, which is always the nicest thing.
Right.
It's a nice braided cable, which I like. And then it has an Apple Lightning connector on the other end to plug into your phone, as you can see here. Okay, so that plugs into my phone. My phone just vibrated angrily. What did you do? And if you use, you have to use this cable for data transfer. And don't be upset if you plug this in here and be like, oh, good, I have this nice Leica cable laying around. I don't have to bring my charge cable. So I'm gonna just plug this into the wall and charge my phone when I'm on vacation. Guess what? This will not charge your phone.
This is data only.
This is data only. It does not carry power.
Yes.
So you're gonna have to carry, a charge cable.
A couple cables.
Yeah, a couple cables.
Wait, are there cables that can do both?
I did find some, but I don't want to say that without testing it first.
So that'll be the next episode.
Yeah. So this will only work with Leica Fotos app on your phone. You have to have the latest version of Leica Photos. You can connect the cable, and what that's going to do is give you a much faster transfer speed than transferring over Wi-Fi like we have now. Although, that kind of brings us to the Wi-Fi in here has been upgraded.
Yes.
From
More letters and numbers.
More letters and numbers.
Don't get too into it.
So the M10R had 802.11n. This has 802.11ac including all the A, B, C, G, and before. Yeah. It's basically it's Wi-Fi Gen 5, and it also adds Bluetooth 4.2 and Bluetooth Low Energy, which we've seen on other Leica cameras like the Q2 and the SL2 that really help in establishing a much faster wireless connection to your phone or whatever iOS device you have or Google device. And upcoming in the next firmware, you're going to be able to do, because of that new Apple connectivity, you'll be able to do firmware updates from the app.
Game changer.
Remotely. No memory card, no downloading, what folder I put it in.
We hope and assume.
It's going to be on Photos, be like, there's an update available for your camera. Turn it on. Cool, update. And that's it. It'll also do all the time geotagging using Apple location services. So with the phone off and in your pocket, it will track you and your camera and communicate over Bluetooth, low energy, so it won't suck down the battery. You'll be able to get geotagging on your photos, because something that you guys are losing out on with the old Visoflex is this has GPS built in, the M10 Viso. The new one does not have GPS built in, so this is something they kind of had to do.
But the upside to that is now it can be metal.
Yes.
Because the Viso 020 couldn't be metal because it had to let the signal in, whereas this can be because there's no no radio in there.
I also just want to show another option. Let's say that
This is cool.
Yeah, you do want to charge your two batteries at once, one in the camera and one with the charging block. They make these, which is a little bit bigger. It is a fair amount larger, actually. You might just want to get two of these, but if you only have one outlet that you want to take advantage of, get a dual charger with USB-C power delivery. This one's called a Anchor Nano Pro, and I think this is a 30-watt brick, so each one of these ports is 15 watts, which is more than enough. You only need 10, and you could charge out of one adapter, either charge your phone and your camera, or you could charge the camera and the external battery pack. So those are kind of cool.
Here's what I think we should. I'm going to talk about two accessories that are irrelevant, and then we think we should take questions for the next half an hour.
30 minutes, for sure.
First thing I want to talk about is there is a new hand grip for the M11. Now, because the M11 does not have a removable base plate like the M10 does, the M10 hand grip, which is here, does not work. So the grips are not cross-compatible at all, just to be aware of that. So on the M10, you take the base plate off, attach the grip. On the M11, there is no base plate to remove. Jose, if we can get a close-up of
There
this. So this is the M10 grip. Again, does not work on the M11. This, keep the close-up, is the M11 grip. You notice it looks quite a bit different. Well, that's because, again, there is no base plate you have to remove. You simply thread the grip on. So let me kind of walk you guys through what the features are, if you will, of the grip. First, of course, you've got the grip itself, the little handle part. You've got a threaded socket for the Leica finger loops, which come in 3 sizes. These are sold separately, so if you wanted to get a little bit extra grip on the grip, you can. Next, on the sort of inside part, you can see, let me get our focus here. There we go. There's a little pin. I had pointed out there was a hole on the bottom of the camera. This pin kind of latches into it just to help it from rotating. Then, of course, the tripod thread or tripod post here. On the bottom, a couple things. There is a pass-through for the USB-C. So this does not cover the USB-C port on the camera. It passes right through. Then there's, oh, right, well, I think they get it.
There you go.
Yes, it just, yes.
Ah,
it goes
see,
like
you did it too.
It's great.
You did it.
Anyway, the way that it attaches to the camera is a little flippy-do, there's a technical term, right into the tripod socket there, like so. It then, of course, duplicates the tripod socket on the bottom. It's kind of in the position of where it was on the old analog M's.
Yeah.
Off to the side, so.
But you shouldn't need it because.
Well, I'm almost there. The last thing before I get to that is this flap is rubber and it does kind of half open.
Cool.
So you have access to the battery and SD card, which is in the same place. So again, it doesn't actually block it permanently. It just flaps open. But as David was saying, the cleverest aspect of this new grip design is that you'll see it's got little grooves here. This is Arca Swiss or Really Right Stuff compatible, which means if you have something like this little Sure tripod here, it's not quite tall enough, this will natively act as a quick release plate for, let me just thread it on here so we can see it, for your Arca Swiss or Really Right Stuff tripod heads. So instead of needing a dedicated quick release plate, if you have the M11 grip attached to the camera, it natively just attaches and it's super, super solid. I had it on my Really Right Stuff BH55 this morning. I tried to see if I can get it to torque. It doesn't move. It is rock, rock solid. Okay, you can come back to me, Jose. So that is the M11 grip, currently only available in black. Unknown if they'll do a silver one or not. Just to put that out there.
It's very cool.
Super nice. I'm gonna put this over here. The other thing I want to talk about with regards to grips and stuff.
Thumbs, right?
We've had, of course, for many years, the thumbs up, and then later on the thumb support, which were made by Leica. If you're poking around the internet, you'll see there is now an M11 thumb support in black, but there doesn't appear to be one in silver. It's a little bit weird. The reason is the black M11, the finish is a little different than the black chrome that we've seen in the past. It's also aluminum. So the M11 thumb support is now aluminum and painted the same, or anodized, whatever they do, magic, the same finish as the M11. So it matches. It does fit on the M10, it does, but it won't match perfectly. However, because the M11 in silver has a brass top plate, like past the M10 thumb support will fit on the M11. In fact, that product is now being renamed the M10 and M11 thumb support. So thumbs ups from Match Technical and thumb supports that Leica has made for the M10 all fit perfectly and natively on the M11. There's not going to be any newer versions because they are exactly the same. So if you're trading in your M10 or any M10 variant and you have your thumbs up or your thumb support, keep it. It's still going to work. There's no it's not like a halfway solution. It will work. It is a perfect matched fit.
Nice.
Half cases do not work. That is primarily because the tripod socket is in a different spot, so it doesn't attach very well.
line up, yeah.
I've tried Archidemano cases and I've tried the Leica cases. They don't work. So we do need to wait for the Leica protectors for the M11 to be released, as well as Oberwerth doing some cases, and of course Archidemano will as well. So that's to come. I think we should take some questions because there's probably about 80 billion of them.
Jose, you've been watching.
Again, we are going to do another M11 show on January 29th. I keep saying that. Hold on, let me make sure that's the right day. Yes. So we're not going to get to all the questions today. We're not going to have all the answers today, but give us 2 weeks, and we probably still won't have all the answers, but we'll have a heck of a lot.
Why don't we dive in?
Jose, go.
All right. So yeah, we have a few questions.
Just about 80,000. That's okay. We got this.
You guys have been answering some of them as we
Good.
go.
Figured that would happen.
Yeah, of course. So let me ask a few that we haven't talked about.
Okay.
Maybe not too much into detail. How do the dimensions of the M11 compare to those of the M10?
The same, within fractions of a millimeter.
They did shave, like it's kind of hard to see. It's a little easier to. Oh, that's really dirty. It's easier to see on the back. If you get a close-ups on you here.
What are you trying to do?
Just demonstrate how the top plate. I just want to show. So the top plate.
What's the M10R?
Yes, I know.
Okay.
So the top plate kind of extends down, and the LCD screen kind of overlaps it a little bit. Versus on the M11, you'll see that the top plate ends right where the screen starts. So there's no overlap here. And likewise, if you look on the bottom, the dimensions are ever so slightly different versus a base plate.
It's close enough that I can put a half case on it from Arch Mano, and it does fit. It just doesn't line up perfectly. But the dimensions are within fractions of a millimeter.
Yeah, as far as body thickness, identical.
It's the
As
same.
far as, so this dimension across, identical. This dimension going front to back, identical. The only difference is a little bit of height, but imperceptibly so.
And the viewfinder is the same, so all the diopters and magnifiers that work on the M10,
Yep.
specifically the M10, which had a larger finder than past models, work on the 11.
Yes.
All right. Does it have higher dynamic range than the M10R?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, it does. That's the answer to that question.
It's stunning. I mean, I'm thinking about I have it in the review, but I was doing some walk around photography and bright sun, people sitting outside at cafes, and there was this woman with a dog, whatever, it was cute. I took a picture, but I was using rangefinder. I didn't really think about it, and she was like pretty pale, and just only her face was in the sun, the rest was in shadow. Her face just completely blew out. So when I was walking away looking at the pictures, I was like, oh, well, that was a waste.
Yeah.
I mean, like completely just white.
Yep.
I pulled it down 2 stops in Lightroom, and it's
And the
all,
shot's in the review.
and it's all there.
can see it.
Like I have never
the dog, right? The lady
yeah,
with
the
the
dog.
dog. Yeah.
With the red jacket.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen a digital camera be able to hold 2 stops of highlight recovery. That's absurd.
Yeah.
So, and that was at 64 ISO because I was shooting in super bright daylight. I shoot auto ISO. I talk about that in the review as well. And when I was captioning all my photos, I realized that almost all of them are 1/320th of a second.
Wait, Sean, is Sean Reed in the chat? Hey, Sean. What's going on?
Where's Sean?
VT Sean right there.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Good to see you. Thanks
That's
for
up
joining
Vermont.
us. Yeah, sorry. I just had to give him a shout out.
I've never seen that. So because I was shooting auto ISO and not locked in at say 400 or 800, the camera was giving me 64 ISO because of how bright it was. And I was able to pull out those highlights like I've never seen before. It was amazing.
The M10R improved on the highlight recovery.
It did.
You would say the M11 is even.
Oh yeah.
better.
Yeah. I'd say the M10R you can recover about a stop of highlights, which is still pretty impressive for digital. But 2 stops I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Not even on the S.
It's
I've never seen that on the
mind blowing.
anything.
All right, next.
Does the M11 have perspective control like the M10R?
It does not.
M10R?
Now, there's certainly
Yet.
enough resolution. And David talked about this in the review, so I won't get into it too much. Because you have 60 megs, you can do Lightroom perspective control, which is the same thing that the cameras. Because keep in mind, the perspective control feature that's in the firmware of the M10R is the same thing you're doing in Lightroom, just in previewing it in camera. Hopefully, we'll get that on the M11. It is not there yet.
It has the necessary hardware in terms of level gauge and processing capability. It's just not implemented yet.
Yeah. Next.
All right. Would
And
only
I did a lot of perspective control correction.
Yeah. Next.
Would only the most highly resolving lenses see the benefit of the processor downsizing the resolution for cleaner images, or will the softer lenses also see performance boost in resolving?
Well, we haven't really seen a performance boost yet from downsizing. So the TBD on that with older lenses, that's going to be, I'm going to dive into that on the next show. I'm going to bring some older lenses with me. I'm going to do some testing. So 'cause I know there's a lot of questions about how do vintage lenses work with the higher res sensor. So we will answer those when we have more data.
It just wasn't my goal when I was testing.
Correct.
But it is certainly a goal that we've already discussed, that we know we need to do, and we have access to vintage glass. And now that we have more time,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier.
Yeah, just
for us.
remember, this is day 1. We've got 5 years or so to explore this topic. So we're excited to see where we take it.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Will the M10R remain in production? And if so, possible price reduction?
As of now, it's still in the product portfolio, and there hasn't been a price change.
Yet.
I have to assume
Something's going to happen.
that will change. I mean, it happened with the M10P and the
Yep.
M10, so Probably, but I can't confirm that. That's not like official. This is not an official statement. This
Yeah.
is just a guess.
Speculation.
Yeah.
All right. Will the diopter correction from the M10 work with the M11?
Yes.
Yes. Same viewfinder.
Perfect.
Okay. Perfect. Please comment from press release. The M11 DNG file support is not yet implemented in Mac OS.
I processed all these on a MacBook Pro with the latest, whatever they call it, software.
There you go.
And yeah, it saw the files. Just in the Finder, I was able to get information on the files. It even read metadata and everything. So yes, it's supported.
There you go. Next.
So we did have a few questions about the electronic shutter, if that might cause some, some problem with movement.
Could.
We haven't tried that yet, but that's something we'll test.
Yeah, you don't want to use electronic shutter all the time for every subject, just as we wouldn't recommend it on the SL2. What can happen is you can get kind of that jelly effect where, because the sensor reads out sort of top to bottom, and it can, it's not a, let me phrase it this way, it's not a global shutter, which means that we know of. So if it's reading out line by line, and you move the camera really fast one way, it could do that. Yeah. Or if you have someone or a car or something running across your frame pretty fast, you could also have a detrimental effect. That being said, like if you're, here's what I think, right? So when do you need to be absolutely dead silent? Let's say you're, and Jose, you could speak to this. You're on a film set. Jose does production photography behind the scenes for music videos and for television. So that's a case where, quiet on the set means quiet on the set. And if you have a camera that can be completely silent, that's a great advantage to someone going da 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 da, like a machine gun.
Yeah.
And in those cases, people aren't usually running. They're usually kind of standing still, and you're taking portraits. Or if you're looking to get a steadier shot for a landscape, I'm pretty sure the mountains aren't going to move. So
let's hope not. If they are, you better run.
Yeah.
All right, next question. We'll get into this next show a little bit more, I think, too. So
yeah,
let's keep the ball rolling.
Yeah. So you did mention that after 4,000 of a second, it goes from the mechanical shutter to the electronic. Can you choose shutter speeds after 4,000?
Yes.
The electronic shutter.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
With that nice little touchscreen.
That's right.
Do you have the ability to turn off noise reduction?
Yes.
Okay.
It's in the menu.
But don't.
Don't if you can help it. Or test it first.
We didn't talk about that. That brings up an interesting point. So the other thing that the M11 does is it now offers the longest exposure time of any Leica, up to 1 hour long time exposures. And where that was impractical in the past is, especially let's say with noise reduction, that's a 2 hour
wait time
duration, not just wait time, but also active sensor time, which means battery, like that. So what's great is if I had this and I can charge the camera at the same time, I can keep this plugged in for doing, say, long exposure astrophotography or something like that, and I don't have to worry about the camera dying midway through. I say leave it on generally because you are going to get better quality with less heat noise.
Yeah, I would say, just to sum this up, if you're going to do long exposure photography and you're going to turn off noise reduction, test it first to make sure that the quality is acceptable for what you're doing.
Like let's talk about astro for a second. One of the reasons you may want to turn it off is if you're doing star trails around the North Star. You don't want to have, some star trails here and then a gap and then more star trails if you're stacking exposures over the course of a whole night. So being able to do a 30-minute exposure, then another 30-minute exposure, then another 30-minute exposure, et cetera, until and then you stitch them all together and you get a full go-around. That would be impossible in the case where you couldn't turn noise reduction off. But you should leave it on most of the time.
There we go. Next.
Right. What are the benefits of the brass top plate?
It's heavier. So I'm a car guy, and I'm in the school of Colin Chapman, who founded Lotus Cars, and he's all about adding lightness. So when I get the opportunity to have a tool that weighs less than the tool I used before, I'm gonna take it.
As long as you're not sacrificing any structural.
I mean, the silver is beautiful. It looks like a classic M. If you have a bunch of silver lenses, It's nice. It's like a little more like jewelry.
There's one.
Like you have if you have a silver 50 lux, David will stick it on there. It's gorgeous. But I personally prefer the black one because number one, it's more discreet. And number two, it's lighter. And I like that it's lighter. Even though I shoot with an SL2 and a 90-280, which is the exact opposite of light.
Think about how heavy that would be if it was
Yeah,
brass.
I'm grateful.
Pretty.
I'm grateful that it is lighter.
I mean, there is no denying that is just a thing of beauty, though. So, of course, I just put a brass lens, a brass Summilux, onto a brass camera, and this is
It's got to be pretty dense, yeah.
dense.
Yeah. But that's okay. Next question.
All right. Is there any change to the viewfinder or the viewfinder patch?
No.
No.
Same as the M10R and the M10.
And the frame line selection is
Exactly the
the
same.
same.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That.
What is the magnification of the viewfinder?
0.73.
Okay. Let's see. Does the USB-C port have a cover at all?
No.
Seems like a huge issue
Doesn't
for
need it.
weather sealing.
I mean, I use one of these,
Yeah.
which has a thing right here, and that's
And
never,
you
that's
can
never been
take
an
it
issue.
like in the pool with you.
Yeah. So no,
It's a weather sealed port.
Yeah.
The camera's not weather sealed, but the USB-C port is IP67 rated, which is a very high weather sealing rating.
next.
Do you guys just want to talk about where on the M system is it not really weather sealed, or why couldn't it be weather sealed?
Well, the lenses aren't sealed.
Yeah.
The mount's not sealed because you're using legacy lenses or whatever. So it just wouldn't. If you need to shoot in the rain or wet conditions, get an SL2. Call it a day.
Yeah.
That's just a different tool for a different task.
Or Q.
Or a Q2. Yeah.
I think you guys talked about this. Can I transfer pictures from the M11 to the Leica Fotos app via the cable?
Yes.
Or wireless.
Or wireless. Right.
Yep.
Either. Yes.
A lot of questions and asking about high ISO, dynamic range, and sensor comparison to the M10R.
Yeah, and we'll get into more of that formally in
I
the
mean,
next show.
I can show a couple quick pictures,
Let's
but
do
I
some
want
more
to.
questions first.
But if we can get through the questions, I'll show some picture samples.
If
for
not, we'll show
some of
pictures
those.
next time for sure. We'll do them at the top of the show.
Yeah.
But I really want to try to get to as many questions today as we can.
Yeah. Will there be more dust on the sensor since it acts as the light meter all the time?
Yes.
Probably.
No, I mean, yeah, there was.
We just got to get one of these.
Yeah, that and so this. And where did my little thing go?
highlight?
Yeah.
There you go.
These two items were in my camera bag all the time. Yeah, this is a filter. It has a filter in the back. This is a little blower bulb. Blow off the sensor.
Yeah. Sensor
And-
dust is a part of digital photography life.
And this is an iLead sensor stick. So no, it's a dry cleaning solution just with these little sticky papers to recharge it. And that usually did the trick for me. But yes, for sure, especially I am a crazy person at changing lenses all the time. I carry 5 M lenses with me and I'm constantly swapping lenses. And I don't use back caps because it slows me down. So there's dust. You deal with it. You either spot it out in Lightroom or you just get better at cleaning.
Next question. Let's keep
Right.
going.
What is that light next to the viewfinder on the back of the camera?
That is, I believe, the card writing status line.
Yeah, I think it's like shows you the buffer status. So they moved that I think from here. There's no lights on the. If you look on the, or was it top and bottom? On the M10R, they didn't have those lights. They had 2 status lights here and here, up above and below the buttons, and you see there's kind of like this flat flanking area here. On the M11, the buttons just sort of float here. And there's no area there. So they moved one of the lights to there, but there's also another light here, right there, and another light right here. So
And you can
this-
actually turn those lights off.
you can. In the menu, you can
in the
turn them
menu.
off.
Yes, yeah. So if you're like in super, super dark and you want to be
Discreet.
discreet, you can do that. Next.
All right. So you guys also went over this, but does the M11 have the same quiet shutter as the M10P?
It does.
Yes.
And then in electronic, it would be completely silent. So,
Totally silent.
let's see. Does the 60 megapixel sensor put more distance between the Summiluxes and the APO lenses?
No. Not relative to the M10R. I think it's the same. I think maybe it's
unknown at this time.
Yeah, I would say that's a good question. I don't know. I need to test that more to really see. My brief experience with the 35 APO has been incredible, but I just haven't put it up against like the FLE. TBD.
We're gonna work on that.
We got another show coming up. 2 weeks, people. Same stuff.
And a few years to do testing.
Also true. Next.
All right. So in a short description, what is the difference with this BSI sensor rather than the?
All right. So let me just kind of lay it. It is a very confusing name.
Short description.
It's short. Here's a very confusing name. Backside illuminated sounds like there's light coming through the back of the sensor. That is not at all what is happening. Sensors, in your mind is like, oh, the whole thing, just light hits it and that's it. Well, there's a lot of electronics for every single pixel that needs to be there to, well, essentially just measure voltage. That's all you're doing is you're converting photons into volts, and those volts are going out and being converted to little digital bits, okay? All those electronics usually in a traditional design either sit on the surface of the sensor, like next to or under a micro lens, or in between the various layers of silicon. In a BSI sensor, they take all of that electronics, or the majority of them, and they stick them on the backside. And they wire through the sensor to basically create more photosensitive area with shallower pixel wells, because the actual chip substrate doesn't need to be as thick. They can make it all thinner so the light has less distance to travel, which means it doesn't bounce around, it doesn't go in the box. More light hits the photosensitive area, there's more of it, and those electronics move to the backside, and it also keeps the sensor cooler because all the heat is away from the photosensitive area as well. So there's multiple advantages to this. Why they called it illuminated, I have no clue.
Yeah.
That's the dumbest name I've
I'm
ever
sure there's some reason somewhere, but
they could have just said backside electronics,
right?
And that would have been more accurate.
Backside stuff.
Backside stuff.
Backside things. I don't know.
So that is why it is generally a better sensor design.
Next question. Good question.
Right. Can you customize the adjustment of the electronic shutter?
No, just on or off.
Okay. We do have a couple of questions in asking about comparing M10 monochrome performance.
Which we will do. David's due for another Black and White Showdown 2022 at some point.
Why not? So. I've been doing one a year, right?
We realize that those questions are important, and that's why we're doing another show, so that we can have the next 2 weeks to do that testing to see.
My educated guess, having shot extensively with an M10 monochrome and now having shot extensively with an M11, the M10 monochrome, I expect to outperform the M11 by one stop in low light conditions. And resolution to be similar because you're talking about a higher resolution sensor versus one that has a slightly lower resolution that has no interpolation, and it might kind of balance out.
There you go. Next.
But we have to test it.
And we shall.
Yeah, there's a lot of comparison questions regarding color with the M10.
Yeah, we're going to note all of those and we're going to answer them. Like, we just don't want to just throw answers out there. We want to do the testing.
Yeah.
Although color is a tricky subject with digital because a lot has to do with profiles. And right now, just so you know, Lightroom is very early in its support of the M11. And in fact, just a little public service announcement, I did not have the best of luck with my test camera with the firmware and the color it was turning out, combined with Lightroom's default handling of the embedded M11 DNG profile. And things got much, much better when I went to Adobe Color or Adobe Standard. And everything just looked, again, like I would expect it off of a modern Leica camera. So if you do have an M11 and you bring things into Lightroom, it says Leica M11 in your profile in the upper right. Try changing it to one of the Adobe standard modes like Adobe Color, Adobe Landscape, Adobe, Color, Landscape, Standard, Portrait. And you probably are going to be much happier with the results initially. I think those are going to be worked on, and I think we'll probably see a very good M11 profile once Adobe has their chance to really optimize it.
There you go. Good question.
All right.
Keep them coming.
Will the iCup accessories from Match Technical that fit the M10
Yes.
work on the M11?
Same viewfinder.
Yes.
Yes.
How is shutter lag affected with the new metering?
Less.
Yeah.
A lot less. There's very little shutter lag on the M11. It's very, very, very responsive. The Maestro 3 processor is noticeably faster than the Maestro 2. If you know how fast an SL2 is, that's how fast the M11 is now.
It's nice.
It doesn't
Seriously.
shoot. It doesn't shoot 20 frames a second like the SL2 does.
I'll mention also, if you live anywhere within driving distance of Leica Store Miami, we have at least two cameras on demo. The next 2 days we are open. We have the Visoflex. We have the grip to show. No, we don't have stock yet, so don't even bother asking me that. I mean, you can ask. It's fine. No, but we strongly encourage you to come see us. Check out the camera. We'll walk you through all the new features. We'll show you all the new goodies. You can bring your memory card, bring your lens, test it out. Just a little advertisement for us. Julie got cookies. We have cookies.
I think it's cupcakes.
Cupcakes. We also have. I don't know what we have, but
Coffee.
There's
coffee.
treats. There's treats.
We have a new coffee machine.
We do have a new-
We're lonely, so come and see us at the Leica store over the next 2 days or whenever after.
Enzo needs hugs.
That's right. Enzo was there with me. Yeah. So if you want to check out the new toys, we've got them on display. You can try them out.
Yep.
Next question,
All
if
right.
there's more.
What do you make of the lack of in-body image stabilization with that 60 megapixel sensor?
I'm going to put it this way. I shot 2,000 pictures in a few days in New York at 60 megapixel mostly. I did shoot at some MDNG just to see what it was like. I didn't shoot at SDNG because why would I shoot a 60 megapixel camera at 18? But that's just me. Someone else might have a need for that. The amount of blurry pictures due to motion, that will be none. Because I use auto ISO and I make sure to keep my shutter speed at least at 2/50th of a second, although somewhere we're at 1/60th, 1/25th. And even the ones that were really slow handheld that I used the electronic shutter for, even those were sharp. I really had no problem. This reminds me of the conversation going back to the CL, which I still use for personal travel. The CL has no image stabilization, and the pixels are actually very small because it's 24 megapixels in an APS size sensor, which is equivalent to about 50 megapixel sensor, full frame.
Yeah.
Right? If you think because 47 in APS is 20 and 24. So like
Math.
or 52. Let's call it 52.
Yeah.
So roughly the CL, the little CL, has equivalent pixel resolution if it was a full frame camera to the M11. And very few people have any kind of camera shake or motion blur issues with the CL, and it doesn't have image stabilization.
There you go.
It's fine. How's that?
And if it had stabilization, it would be massive and cost twice as much, and it wouldn't be an M11. If you want stabilized sensor, I get it. SL2, SL2S.
Yeah.
And you can buy one of those right now. Whereas M11, you're going to wait. Another thing.
Operators are standing by.
Okay, we are almost out of time. Again, we are doing another show about the M11 on January 29th, so we will be able to answer the more million questions. And I think that'll be
And check out the review here.
that'll be a good
I'll
time
do
to show
it.
pictures. But
I'll do a screenshot. Or
yeah, show them how to. Show them.
All right, let me show you how to get to this.
All right, go to the old copy. Here we go.
This is a computer. There you go.
Magic.
Look at that. red.forum.com. And you'll see right here the Leica M11 review, the ultimate digital M.
At least till the next one comes out.
At least till the next one comes out. So
It is very comprehensive.
comprehensive is the word.
There's menu
Yes.
screenshots, real-world samples, comparisons of the accessories, and all about what's new.
Yes, you
and
can see how to actually do things.
Yeah.
All the accessories. I'm trying to actually get to some photos.
lots
yeah.
and lots of photos.
And you can see, actual real life photos from the camera.
There's at least one bicycle photo.
I have one bicycle photo this time.
David's
Squirrels.
signature.
One.
A lot of
David?
squirrels.
But I have squirrels this time.
Squirrels.
A lot of squirrels.
Don't say that too loudly. The dog will get excited.
And interestingly, that's something we didn't talk about. This
Oh,
feature.
we didn't. Yeah, we'll talk about it now.
So this feature, the reason I was able to get such good pictures of squirrels with such a short lens was because it has 1.3 and 1.8x digital crop modes, which are very similar to the way the Q2 is.
Actually, it's where really similar is the CL, because that's what they introduced in CL firmware 4, because it's not focal length indicated. It's indicated by 1.3, 1.8.
Yes, yes.
just to
and
be-
it-
just to-
right, and it's just like a bounding box.
Yes.
So it doesn't crop in the way shooting APS mode on the SL2 does. You can actually see everything outside of your frame, and if you're shooting an LDNG, you get the whole frame, but it comes in pre-cropped into Lightroom or whatever your photo editor of choice is. So here in this case, I used, as you can see, the 1.3x crop mode on my 90 to get the equivalent of what, like a 120. And look, it's a squirrel.
The little guy.
Yeah. So, and then what I was talking about with the stabilization of shooting, this is shot wide open on the APO Summicron 35 at closest focus distance, and it's pin sharp. And I'm not on a tripod. Actually, not a single image in this review was shot on a tripod. Everything was completely handheld.
If you get time, it is, if you're thinking about the M11 or if you're on the list for an M11, check out David's review. It is worth the read, even if you just skim the text and look at the pictures.
And that, by the way, just so you get an idea, that's 10,000 ISO.
And you have the image data in your caption,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, the image data is always
You can
there.
see, there it is. You can see the settings he's using, the lenses he's using, ISO, all that stuff.
Yep.
So
Check it out.
You can come back to us, Jose. This is really, really, really worth the read if you're thinking about the M11 because it's, like I said, it's very comprehensive. I think we should call it because we're going to do another show about this. I'm sure there's more questions. Obviously, we read the comments. So if you have more questions that we didn't answer or questions after watching this video, leave a comment on the video once it's posted on our page, and we will definitely be referring to those for our next M11 episode on January 29th. I'll also mention you should subscribe because that will give you notifications as to when we are posting our next live videos.
If I have the time,
Yes.
I will be doing an actual produced shorter form, like recorded video review of the M11.
Let me say this. This is just the beginning.
Yes.
Today was launch day. Let's keep that in mind. We've got a lot more content and ideas about the M11 planned, especially as accessories become more available and as Lightroom profiles become more available. All these things, this is day one. Day one. So the future is looking good for the world of Leica M. And
sure.
we encourage you to check out the reviews, subscribe, come see us in the store. Are you there tomorrow or Saturday?
Friday and Saturday.
Okay, so David and I are both there in the store the next 2 days with the dog and our amazing team who's right now on the front lines helping everyone out who's not watching this.
The Village.
I also should apologize if you've been trying to reach me for the past couple of weeks and I haven't been very available, or David.
Same.
Now you understand why. We are all both now, working double time to get caught up with everything, and we appreciate that very much. David has been tirelessly working on his review so that everyone can read it in time for launch day. So thank you, David, for getting that done.
Thank me.
Why don't you sign us off?
So thanks for tuning in to our M11 kickoff video. Hopefully you guys learned something new that maybe you didn't see elsewhere, because we tend to be a little bit nerdy about this stuff.
A little bit.
If you do have questions, like Josh said, leave them in the comments, and we'll monitor those. And if we don't answer you written, we are taking notes for our next episode on the 29th, where we're going to go into even more depth and answer more questions, which is going to be great because a lot of people will actually have them in their hands, be putting them to use, and have practical questions of how do I do this, how do I do that,
Very
or
true.
I'm getting this or getting that.
Very true.
So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yes.
I think it's going to be, it's just an exciting time because this is, I keep saying this, it's an amazing time to be a photographer.
We're spoiled.
We are so incredibly spoiled. I didn't think in a million years that when I was doing photography on film 20 years ago, that I would ever utter the words, "It's amazing at 10,000 ISO," and you can handhold it. It was like,
Yeah.
no, that was science fiction.
Yeah.
Or 60 megapixels, science fiction. So having all that in this package, and it's still that beautiful, elegant simplicity, I am in love with this, which you probably couldn't tell, right?
Yeah, you guys can see that we're both exhausted and exhilarated at the same time. So
I'm just gonna take this one right here.
yeah, you can. We have them now. Also, thank you, Rob,
Yes.
from Leica, for everything you do.
Oh,
And-
let's pop the schedule back up for those
and
who
getting
haven't
us a
seen it.
camera. And Jose, can you grab that?
Yeah,
schedule
Jose,
again?
just grab the schedule real quick before we sign off. You guys, it's 2 p.m. Eastern here.
The question is, will I be back at the store at some point later? Probably. Email me if you need me.
I don't know.
Don't call
So
me.
starting at 4 p.m. and then 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10, you can keep the party going. And you should definitely check out these programs with the other Leica stores all around the country. They've got amazing Leica specialists and photographers teaming up to give really fascinating, interesting presentations. So we have links to I think they're Eventbrite listings in our video description of this video, and you can click to register for these and check out some more awesome M11 content. So big thanks to Leica and UPS to actually getting us this stuff today, which was fantastic.
It's a miracle.
Huge thank you to everyone on this team. Just pulling an all-nighter last night. It was pretty nuts, and definitely appreciated. Big thanks to Jose for smoothly producing the show, keeping all our close-ups in focus, and keeping all the questions in check. Huge thanks to Josh for his encyclopedic knowledge of cars and Leica and
lens
dogs
caps.
and lens
Watches.
caps
It's
and
so
all those
random.
things. All right, but
Good stuff.
and of course, thanks to you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We wouldn't do this if you didn't watch. So keep watching. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, toss us a thumbs up on the video if you like it, and do be sure to check out the written review on Red Dot Forum. In the meantime, should kind of whet your palate and give you an idea of what you can expect from this awesome camera. Until the 29th, we will see you then, and keep on shooting.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Guys.